What's going on, Lion fans? Welcome to the Pride Detroit YouTube channel. I'm Meko, joined once again by my guy Morgan, fresh off of his trip to Florida. I'm kind of surprised, dude. I expect you to come back a little more tan, a little more, closer to my complexion, but you look good.
Oh, man, I stayed out of the sun. It was too hot down there. I got a little bit of sun, but yeah, I'm not built for the 100-degree heat. But very glad to be back in Michigan, in Detroit specifically. But it's really nice outside right now. But did you look at the weather at the beginning of next week? It's supposed to be like 98 on Monday.
Yeah. I'm kind of glad that I took care of like all my yard work this past weekend, so hopefully I don't have to do it. And if it does get crazy, I'm hoping the neighborhood kid comes by so I can pay him $25 to cut my grass because I don't want to be out there in that heat.
I need that to happen too, for real. But yeah, glad to be back. Shout out to Ryan, and I'll be excited. I'm definitely going to jump on with y'all to do those list casts through the summer. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Spoiler alert to that. So Ryan and I were supposed to record two of those, and one of them got interrupted. So we actually gotta do another one of those probably next week. We'll knock it out early next week so that the audience can kind of check it out. More than likely like Tuesday morning type of thing. But no, those videos are going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to keep going through the different position groups and seeing where current Lions players rank and kind of have that conversation about should they be ranked higher, or also taking a look at the league as a whole to even just see how other analysts are viewing the NFL landscape right now and who's the best at certain positions. Because I think we sometimes get like so pigeonholed into like names, like, oh, I've heard this person's name and this player must be good, and forgetting that like, no, there's other players that have gotten drafted that are playing really well that are also climbing up those position rankings. So I think this is going to be good for not just us as people who cover the Lions, but also fans as well to become a little more familiar with some of the other rising stars in the NFL.
Yeah, for sure. It makes you just more well-rounded as a football fan, watcher, however you want to phrase it, because we consume so much Lions content, but doing stuff like this helps to get a good gauge of what else is going on around the league and where some of your elite players stand, like you said. So yeah, that'll be fun. I love that. Good idea, Ryan.
Yeah, 100%. So, Morgan, you're back today, and there's a question that was floated out there today. I was like scrolling through Bleacher Report, and this question kind of caught my eye. And I thought it would be a really good topic for us to kind of discuss and also kind of react to Bleacher Report's answer for the Lions specifically. But essentially, they were asking, now that OTAs are over, what are some of the biggest questions that each team have to answer? And for the Lions specifically, they said that the biggest question that the Lions had to answer is if Terrion Arnold is going to be able to live up to being, that top tier corner that he was billed as in the draft process. And I thought that was interesting. And I think it also goes to show like how well rounded this roster is, that the one question mark that you're going to have is about the rookie, that you can't really poke holes anywhere else except to go at the rookie. But first of all, what do you think about that as a question? Do you think that Terrion's performance in his rookie season is something that a lot of Lions fans and the coaching staff needs to be concerned about?
I get that. That's why they defaulted to that. That's an easy question to pose for otherwise pretty well-rounded roster. But the way you got to look at Arnold, he's a rookie corner, and very seldomly do corners come in and make a difference right away, right, Meko? Like that's a position that there's a pretty big learning curve, even if you are coming from the University of Alabama and Nick Saban's pedigree in the secondary. But at the same time, guys, like that's something that we need to be prepared for. There's a world where he could start opposite Carlton Davis outside, but there's also a world where it might not happen for a little bit just because it might take a little bit of time. And that's the luxury the Lions have with this, roster is they can afford to, they can take their time wherever they want. That's why they drafted guys like Giovanni Manu and Sione Vaki and Broderick Martin the year before and Colby Sorsdal, because they can take time to develop them and let them get right and learn the game and learn the proper technique and fundamentals. So, that's something. If that's their only question, that's pretty good, right?
Yeah, I would agree with you. If the biggest question for this team to answer is where is Terrion gonna measure up to, I understand why it's a question, because the Lions' last few first round draft picks have been amazing, right? You have Jahmyr Gibbs, a Pro Bowler last year. You have Aiden Hutchinson that was a Pro Bowler last year. Jack Campbell played some quality snaps. Panay is an All Pro level tackle, considerably like one of the top 2 best tackles in football right now. Like, there's a lot of hype to necessarily live up to, but like you said, there's a realm where like maybe Terrion doesn't start right away. Maybe once we get into training camp, we start seeing more Amik Robertson at outside corner compared to nickel, like we've been seeing him. Or just, you never know how things are going to shake up and how quickly they're ready to throw Terrion to the Wolves necessarily. But even if he does start right away, I still don't think that's the biggest question. I still think there are other questions specifically on this defense that are worth asking, and I think you have a really good one with the corner opposite of Terrion.
Yeah. So my thought process was, where does Carlton Davis take his game to this season? Because Carlton Davis in 2020, before a couple of injuries dinged him up the last few years, was a terrific cornerback. Like, he was an integral part of the Bucs defense that won the Super Bowl in 2020, the Tom Brady year, if you will. That defense was really, really good, and Carlton Davis was a big reason why. So if he can take his game to like that stratosphere again, that can completely change this defense, right, Meko? Like,
yeah,
Aaron Glenn, the Lions defensive coordinator, talked about, the defense. He's talked about in more or less, so many words that he is going to be able to play the defense that he's always wanted to play. Call the defense he's always wanted to call. And to me, that would be like, we're going to get up in your face and mug you at the line of scrimmage and reroute you and slow everything down, slow throw timing off. And if you can do that, and Carlton Davis can cover like the other team's best receiver, the CeeDee Lambs, the Justin Jeffersons, and like do a good job, that can completely transform this defense to the point where you just become so multifaceted and you can take away a team's best option. And this team could be so, so good, right?
Yeah, I love your point there, because Carlton Davis is ideally was brought into this team to be your CB1. Yes, you did draft Terrion Arnold, but he is in a kind of like in a mentorship program at this point with guys like Carlton Davis and Meek Robertson and some of the other veterans in this secondary. Right now, a lot of the focus does need to be on him and seeing if he can get back to that level of play. Because like you said, if he's able to be that number 1 corner that he's been for a good portion of his career, outside of having to overcome some injuries, then everything else in this defense starts to settle down a little bit more. That pass rush can be more aggressive. We know how Aaron Glenn likes to dial up these exotic blitzes with other guys from the secondary. And at the same time, you create an environment where Terrion can actually learn without having to, cover the best wide receiver on any given team. Now, obviously, like we know with the way that the NFL's been going, a lot of teams have 1 or 2 good receivers, right? I think about Minnesota having, Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. Chicago has a trio of some quality good receivers with Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and now Rome Odunze. Like, he is going to be battle tested, but you can lessen that blow if a guy like Carlton Davis is taking care of one side of the field and you start making opposing offenses a little more one-dimensional, or making them have to find other options within their passing attack to find ways of beating you. So I really do like that viewpoint of, hey, one of the biggest questions the Lions do kind of have to answer is, what level or what kind of player are you getting in Carlton Davis going into this 2024 NFL season?
Yeah, I love that point too, Meko, because there's a lot of really great receivers in the NFL. It's just the way the game is right now with all the passing. But there's only a few, in my opinion, of like the special grade, if you will. And it's like Jefferson, Lamb, Jamar Chase, and then you can, argue a few more. But yeah, I think that's a great point. So Terrion can, learn, and I hopefully Terrion starts, guys, opposite of Carlton Davis on the outside, because then that means he's playing well and the coaching staff's going to trust him from the jump. But it's a good opportunity and a good atmosphere for learning, like you said. So yeah, I really hope Carlton Davis can tap into some 2020, stay healthy. We'd be off
at the
running.
very least. I mean, at the very least, he just has to be better than Cam Sutton was last year. At the very least, like if he's an upgrade over Cam Sutton, then things are a lot better for this defense. And that kind of leads me into my biggest question, because it's also a part of the secondary, just like you and Bleacher Report kind of pointed out, except I'm more focused on the back end of this secondary. And that's mainly my question is this: what are the Lions going to do with that safety group? And I ask that because throughout OTAs and minicamp, Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch were both hurt and they didn't get a chance to participate on the field, which mainly left Ifeatu Melifonwu out there playing a majority of those first team reps, which is something that I love for him, because considering how well Iffy was playing down the stretch, once the Lions decided to go to him over Tracy Walker, I do think he's deserving of these opportunities. But you and I both know that by the time training camp comes around, if both of those guys are healthy, the Lions are going to have to try to figure out how do they split the snaps between these three guys and who gets the bulk share of the first team reps. And kind of a sub question to the question I have of overall, like, what are they going to do with this group? Primarily, what are you going to do with a guy like Iffy, who's going into a contract year and just played lights out, like was literally stuffing the stat sheet, getting tackles, getting turnovers, getting sacks, being graded very highly according to PFF. What do you do with a guy like that seems to be putting it all together, but it's at a time where you're going to have to make a decision on, do you even want to keep a guy like that long term?
Yeah, and I love this thought process, because you really start getting into the nitty gritty of how this roster is constructed. And right now, like as it stands, knock on wood, like the secondary is deep and they have options. So we were talking before we got on, you were like, okay, let's say Amik is really going to start at nickel, because they're like, all right, he's got to play. He's just killing it. Mm-hmm. And then if we let's put, just for, the thought, the sake of the thought process, have Terrion and Carlton Davis outside. All right. So Brian Branch needs to be on the field 100% of the time.
Yep.
And then it's just going to be a big competition there. And what flavor do you like between Melifonwu and Kirby? And I love your point too. Like Melifonwu, man, made tons of plays, like the NFC Championship, the NFC North clinching game in Minnesota. That was a great read, great play. He was a super effective blitzer.
Yeah,
coming from the secondary, and was creating all kinds of havoc in opponents' backfield. So that's going to be so fun to watch, because what do you do? And he, like you said, he's going in, this is Melifonwu's fourth year. So that's for those of you that don't know, standard rookie deals are 4 years. Unless you're a first round pick, then you get the 5th year team option. So yeah, there's a lot to think about from I'm assuming it's just going to be an open competition. Like Dan Campbell said, just have at it, but he's gonna play, right, Meko? Like either way, like he's gonna play.
And that tends to be my general like fallback, is like, if he's going to play, if he plays anything close to what he was playing like at the end of last year, the Lions are gonna find ways of getting him on the field, because we know that's just how they operate as a defense or as a team as a whole. Like they want to get their playmakers on the field. If he just becomes a very interesting case for me, because it was such a limited sample size and he's had to overcome injury and he's had to overcome, making that transition from corner to safety. But then like when you add on that extra caveat of like, well, if he goes out there, whether it's a lot of snaps or a limited amount of snaps, and he makes a lot of plays, either way, you would have to think his representation is going to come back to the Lions, or possibly take him to another team and say like, hey, this is the sample size. You see that he's able to make plays when he's healthy and when he's available. Does he almost price himself out of the Lions, future in a sense? Or again, does he become this guy where they're just like, no, he's too dynamic. He does too much for our team. We got to pony up and keep a guy like this. And we talked about this a while ago, once the Lions started paying the likes of Amon-Ra St. Brown, Penei Sewell, and Jared Goff. the Lions are quickly coming up to this point as soon as next year where they're going to have to start making those really tough decisions of not everyone can stay. But if he feels like the type of player where if he can replicate even half of what he was doing, well, not half because he barely played, but if he starts to showcase some of the same things he showed last year with more opportunities, like that's going to be really hard to turn down. And because he is a 4th-round pick, you may not have to shell out as much as you would for, a guy that was a 1st-round pick. So maybe you're not looking at having to pay him, 17, $18 million. Maybe you can just get away with the fact of paying him 12, or just being the wizards that the Lions are with constructing and, knowing how to move around the salary cap, being able to find ways of getting him paid without strapping yourself year to year.
Yeah, I would hope so. So like say Kirby and Branch are your technical starters, I still think that's like Melifonwu is going to be on the field for 60-ish% of the defensive snaps. Like it's just the way that I think that's just the way it'll shake out. Like you said, this coaching staff's really great at getting their guys on the field, even if they aren't technically starters, because like they're so good, right? Like you got to get them snaps. That's your job as a coaching staff, in my opinion, is to find ways to get your playmakers into good positions. And Aaron Glenn clearly tapped into something down the stretch with Melifonwu, because every play he was making was big. He was coming, and he was doing the little things too. When you watch the tape, he was getting downhill and fitting into a gap and making a tackle and getting into run fits and being sound. So I love Melifonwu's game, and if he can put it together for a full season and really put a lot on tape, man, there's a world where he gets paid because he's got it all. Like he's a height, weight, speed guy.
Yeah.
And if he can, it's always been about, like, he was transitioning, right? If you guys don't know, Ifeatu Melifonwu's story, he was a corner, drafted as a corner, and then did that for a little bit, and then they're like, we're going to put you at safety. So he's learning a completely new position. And yeah, if he can put it together, it's the same conversation we're having with Aleem McNeil almost, to an extent, right? Like getting to that point. Can you pay him? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same conversation you're having with Aleem. It's the same conversation we're going to have with Derek Barnes. It can even, in a sense, again, not that his contract is due soon, but it's the same conversation with Kirby, right? Like Kirby's been was really good his rookie year. I think a lot of us feel like he took a step back his sophomore year, but if he makes another big jump forward, well, now Kirby starts to feel like he's more solidified in probably the long-term future of this team. But I do think like the emergence of a Kirby Joseph, or of a Ifeatu Melifonwu, and the presence of a Brian Branch, who just was lights out from the minute you said go, does make that entire position group a lot more interesting going into training camp and playing out into the regular season of what does this group look like. The one thing I will say though, Morgan, we had the same question last year when CJ GJ was coming back from injury, and it was like, well, they have Kirby if he's playing great, but you brought in CJ for a reason. Well, how do you play all three of these guys? And the Lions did it perfectly. Like they still found a way of all three guys getting like equal snaps. So I think it's a question to still ask, but I think we might already have the answer to it if we just look at how they did it last year.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, they do a good job of it. You got to get your players on the field. Like we talked about it with the Derek Barnes situation at linebacker, right? Very similar situation. Like it's probably going to be Jack Campbell at the mic for the big share of the snaps, and then Alex Anzalone at the will. And that's kind of your base these days. Your base is nickel when you're talking about personnel, and the majority at like the percentage of snaps on the field. So, but Derek Barnes is going to play a lot because they're going to find ways to put him in at edge, at Sam to rush the passer, set an edge against the run. They're going to find ways to make plays with him. I mean, he had that pick against Tampa, right? Like he was on the field for that play. So
yep.
In my mind, that always, I think Ryan or you made that point a couple videos ago.
I think that was actually Jeremy. I've been doing so many videos, I don't remember who I was talking to at this point.
Good job, because we keep the content coming, right? That's what we do here at the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel. But yeah, he was on the field for that play, man, and it always sticks out in my mind. Yeah, because that was a big drive, and so this is awesome because this is how talented, and it gets me excited. And it's only June 11th when we're recording this, but this team is really good, top to bottom.
Yep.
And this is these are conversations you have.
Yeah, and I think I think it's very telling that between me, you, and the article that Bleacher Report put together, most of our questions do center around the secondary. I don't think that's a coincidence. Obviously, the secondary was a big weakness of this team last year. So being able to see how improved it is from a year ago really could be the difference in this team going that much further than they went last year. Obviously, we still got to worry about health. We still have to worry about, players developing and getting better. But just trying to keep it fairly simple, if the secondary is better, this Lions team could really start to have those Super Bowl aspirations and really be able to make a stronger push because they, like you said, this is a really solid roster from top to bottom.
Yeah, and we haven't even talked about the offense this entire video, and for good reason. It's going to be everything. People stay healthy for the most part. It's a top 3 offense in football. Write it in pen, whatever you want to do. So, if this secondary, the point you made earlier, if Carlton Davis is at least a average cornerback, then the conversation changes completely for this defense because they were getting by without any of that down the stretch last season.
100%. Absolutely. So that's going to pretty much do it for this video, guys. Those are our biggest questions. Now that OTAs are over and that we're heading into training camp, but what are some of your biggest questions for this team as we kind of switch gears and start to build up towards training camp? Do you have questions about the offense? Is there questions that you still have about the defense? Maybe you have some questions about the coaching staff or even Brad Holmes and how they're going to continue to build up this roster. Let us know all of that in the comment section below. Also, if you are looking for any more Lions content, you can always find that on the Pride of Detroit website. And if you want to continue to stay plugged in to all the video content that we're putting out on the YouTube channel, all you have to do is hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and that's going to keep you tapped into all of the videos that we end up uploading over here on the POD YouTube channel. But with all that said, I'm Meko. He's Morgan. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch, and we'll be sure to catch you guys in the next one.